Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started now. At this time, I would love to introduce our panelists. And for the interview today, Oliver Velez, who is an inaugural keynote speaker of the first Traders Expo, international best-selling author, world-renowned trader and entrepreneur, and one of the world's most respected and celebrated traders of all time. In 1999, Dow Jones dubbed him the Messiah of trading. And today, in 2021, he continues to be defined as one of the most influential leaders of his generation. Oliver, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fine, Jordan. Thank you very much for having me, and what a very, very special introduction.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We'll actually be interviewing Oliver, and at Money Show, we prepared a few questions to ask Oliver, and he'll be elaborating on each of them. So without further ado, let's jump to our first question. Oliver, you're a pioneer in the trading industry, and remember you doing your thing to educate traders all the way back in the 1990s. You seem to have not slowed down a bit more than 20 years later. What keeps you going?
That's true. Jordan, it's funny. It's surreal when I look back on things. I have been in this industry for 40 years. That's 4 decades. That's if you count the idiot years. I've been a professional trader for 34 years, so 6 years before being a professional trader. And for 27 of those years, I've dedicated most of my career to spreading the gospel of trading as much as I possibly could throughout the world. And that's actually not a very rare question. I do get that all the time. Oliver, after all this time, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you working? What keeps you dedicated to this cause? What keeps you answering questions? What keeps you dealing with us? And I'd have to say that it's largely tied to this vision or dream that happened, I would say, in the early 1990s. You see, I first started my career in the 80s, December 1986 to be exact, and 1986. And when the new order handling rules occurred in 1990 that gave individuals the ability, the legal right to place their own trades from their own computers, anyone in anywhere in the world could literally place their orders because that was not the world that I had entered into in the 80s. You had to have order takers place your orders in markets. And so these new order handling rules hit me like a ton of bricks. And it made me realize that we were at the doorstep of a brand new era. It hit me very profoundly, Jordan, that um, we were moving into a new era, a new world that would give the individual the power so that there would be this period or multi-decade process where the balance of power would shift from institutions that predominantly and historically control markets to the individual. I believed when those laws changed, um, it made me realize that we were shifting to a world where, Wall Street was going to move to Main Street. And so, having seen this, having realized that the barrier to entry into the markets from the part of regular individuals was starting, um, it made me want to actually focus on helping that cause come to fruition a lot faster. And so at that particular time, I was largely focused on educating institutional traders. I was hired out by institutional firms to train their traders how to operate in the markets more professionally, more successfully. And it was in the early 1990s, after the law changes that gave individuals the ability to place their own orders without going through a third party, that I began to shift and change my whole focus. And it is at that particular time that I became very dedicated to spreading the gospel of trading, all over the world, as frequently and as much as I possibly could. And we are now only starting to see the fruition of that vision and that dream that I had in the early 1990s. We see that with the play out in commissions having gone to zero. We see that in the decimalization of the markets where spreads went from being wide to very narrow. We see that from cost and the barriers to entry getting into the market as an individual being 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 lowered. And um, despite the fact that it's been as much as 30 plus years of this kind of developing in the markets, I still feel like we're still at the beginning. And so I still feel like it is my responsibility to spread this gospel, to make sure that every person who has a laptop computer and an internet connection knows that this world, this financial world that we're not taught about in school, that we're not taught about by our parents, is made available to you. And while you may not have a chance of being successful in this world, I am of the belief that every single person should at least attempt to be successful in this world because the upside is so potentially powerful. I've always believed, Jordan, that it is a sacrilege that our educational system, whether we're talking about the educational system in America all the way to educational systems throughout other countries in the world, do not place an importance on economic literacy. And I believe that this is a huge mistake. Money makes the world go round. And it is our responsibility to make sure that our young people and our children are financially literate. And I believe that um, every individual having access to financial markets, unlike it was in the past, is one of the keys to getting that accomplished. So that's what keeps me motivated today, is continuing to spread this specific gospel. Get involved.
Excellent, excellent response, Oliver, and very well said. And I know your early career, many of those funds were started at the Traders Expo, and we
That's right.
appreciate the longstanding education you provided to our
Thank you.
community.
Thank you.
So
Thank
let's,
you.
with that, let's move to our second question in today's interview. And that is, much of the world has come to know you as a short-term day trading expert. Is that all you do? And is that all you suggest others to do as well?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Short-term day trader. Yes. I would have to say that my reputation as a short-term day trader is far larger than anything else that I do. But what's interesting about that is that I am probably more of a I am largely a long-term market participant. In fact, I have over 95% of my personal capital dedicated to the long-term approach to building wealth, to accumulating assets, which is one of the key themes that I'm constantly drilling into all of my traders and students, that you must be an accumulator of assets in this world, not a saver, but an investor into assets. So I would say that over 95% of my activity is actually not day trading related. However, the reason that I'm far more known as a day trader is because my popularity in the industry as one of the pioneers of this self-directed trading revolution that's been going on for the last several decades was um, I guess my popularity came to fruition in the 1990s, which was largely the start of the day trading revolution. You see, as I was mentioning in my response to your first question, in the beginning of the 1990s, there were these new order handling rules that gave individuals the legal right to place their own orders. This never existed before. And a lot of people today might not understand how important that legal change was. But prior to that, you were not given the ability to place your own order. You had to go through a third party. You had to go through a broker. You had to pay a middleman. And today we don't need that. But That change kicked off the day trading revolution that many people um, know sort of led to the internet boom in the latter part of the 1990s, which ultimately led to what's commonly referred to as the dot-com bubble. But back in the 1990s, being one of the pioneers that was promoting the fact that every individual now has access to the market without a middleman, without the exorbitant cost of going through a third party, because I was one of the first pioneers to get on the soapbox, if you will, and promote that during a time in which day trading exploded. I became one of the day trading, I would say, gurus of the time, and it stuck. But this is despite the fact that the vast majority of my market play is actually long term oriented. I direct hundreds and hundreds of traders around the world in long term opportunities. We scour the earth for long term opportunities. In fact, I have a team of 600 traders throughout the world who are dedicated to scouring the earth for long-term opportunities. We've played things like Apple and Facebook and Tesla and Amazon from the early days. And recently, Bitcoin and Ethereum for long-term opportunities. So I believe that while the first part of my legacy has been largely known more as a short term oriented trader because of when my popularity in the industry surged back in the 1990s, I believe that the twilight years of my legacy is probably going to switch to more of a long-term guru, if you will.
Excellent. Well said again. Alrighty, moving on to our next part of the question, and we've got just about 10, 15 minutes left. I don't
Okay.
think we're gonna have time for questions, and we're getting a lot of different questions in the chat. So I just want to let the audience know that Oliver's team, I believe, will be around, I think, for another presentation throughout the event, or if not, in their virtual booth to answer
Yes.
questions as well. So I just want to remind the audience of that as well. Okay, our next question, Oliver. You, above all others, have always made it clear that trading for a living has a high failure rate, yet you still encourage people to try. Why is that?
Yeah. I would say that I'm probably one of the loudest mouths in the industry about the fact that this industry, when it comes to short-term oriented trading, has a very high failure rate. In fact, um, I have gone on record as early as the early 1990s as being one of the individuals who lets everyone know every time I'm given the ability to speak from a microphone or from a podium. I'm one of the ones that will let you know that the odds are against you when it comes to building a career in this business as a short-term oriented trader. The failure rate is upwards of 92%. But at the same time, if you have the possibility of being one of the 8% that make it, oh my God, is life, the world, the opportunity just beyond belief. And so because the upside, the because the benefit of possibly being one of the 8% is so huge, I believe that every individual should give it a chance, should give it a try. And one of the things that I've done with my career especially over the past 10 plus years, is I've made it possible for people to give it a try without much downside. So I fund every single one of my traders just for them to see if you happen to be one of the 8%. You see, there are many things in life that have a high failure rate. Becoming a professional athlete, becoming a professional soccer player or a baseball player or a soccer player, uh, anything, becoming one of the best attorneys in the world, becoming one of the top doctors or heart surgeons, those things have very high failure rates. Becoming a great restaurant has an extraordinarily high failure rate. It doesn't mean that you should not give it a try. Every individual should give their passion a try. Every individual, in my opinion, should give trading and investing in the financial markets a try, but they should try to do it with a very, very low risk, in a very low risk format. But just because something has a high failure rate does not mean that you should not go for it, because you just might be one of the few. You just might be the 8% that make it. You just might be the professional athlete that starts a professional career. And um, if any of those activities with a high failure rate stopped our professionals from ever trying, we wouldn't have professionals. And so I believe that every individual, that financial literacy has been held back from the masses for too long. I believe that the high failure rate has been used too much as an excuse for regular people not to try it and to give their money to other people to lose. I believe that these are all excuses that have sort of helped regular people from not gaining access to what I believe should be universally accessible to the world. And so I believe that everyone should give it a try, of course, with minimal risk, with the least amount of risk as possible, but you just might be the 8%. And so give it a try.
Excellent. Well, staying on that topic, Oliver, our next question is, why do you think trading has such a high failure rate? Can you kind of sum up the main reasons why most won't be successful and what they may be able to do to improve their odds?
Well, yeah, yeah. First and foremost, I believe that the one of the number one keys to failure in anything is just the lack of education and training in the item. And I think that most people believe that they can simply open up a brokerage account and try their hand at trading without any form of education and without any form of training. And this is one of the key problems, and one of the key reasons that 92+% of the people fail. See, most people will hire someone to teach their children how to swim. Most people will take lessons as it relates to them becoming good at tennis. Most people understand the need to hire someone to teach them medicine or any other specialty, but when it comes to trading, somehow that basic common sense goes out of the window. They think that they can take their money, pit themselves against some of the brightest minds on the planet, some of the richest people on the planet, and win without any education and training. So one key reason is that people think that they can do it without becoming informed, without becoming educated, without becoming skilled. That's reason number one. Reason number two, I would say that most businesses fail for the lack of capital. Most businesses fail because they are undercapitalized. I think this also applies to traders. Most people are trying to play this game with small amounts of money, and it just doesn't work. You can't show up to a gunfight with a knife and think you're going to win. It just doesn't happen. I know what all the marketing out there says. I know what some of the YouTube channel gurus say, that you can make a fortune with a little bit of money, but in the real world, it doesn't work. It takes money to make money in this business. And so if you are undercapitalized, it forces you to trade incorrectly. It forces you to be fearful when you're not supposed to be fearful. It forces you to do the wrong thing all the time. It increases your odds of failure. And if there's a natural 92% failure rate with limited capital, you move that up to something like 98 to 99% failure rate. So that's reason number two. And I can go on and on. Another big reason is because most people focus on winning instead of learning how to lose correctly. This is not a game about learning how to win. Winners happen all by themselves, Jordan. This is a game about learning how to lose. If you first focus on losing correctly, if you can lose professionally, if you can lose the right way, winners will happen by themselves. By themselves. The sun shines on everyone. Winning trades are the sun shines on you, whether you're a criminal, whether you're a professional, whether you are a good person or a bad person. The sun shines on you. Winning trades happen to you, whether you're a bad trader, whether you're a good trader, whether you're a mediocre trader. Good trades, winning trades happen to everyone. What doesn't happen to everyone is consistently small losses. And so you have to focus on the losing side of the equation. But everyone wants to try to practice becoming a winner. Everyone wants to start off this career in the trading business, focusing on trying to win, and it's the wrong direction. And that's reason number 3. Reason number 4, I would say, most people are trying to conquer the markets when in fact the first thing you have to do is conquer yourself. You cannot stay the same and take the same undisciplined you, the same untrained you, the same uneducated you, and take that same person into the market and develop or produce positive results. It doesn't work that way. You have to change you first. You have to become more dedicated. You have to become more disciplined. You have to become more educated. You have to become more trained. You have to change you. Then you have to become a better you. You have to take that better you into the market. And then that better you starts to produce results. But no one wants to change. Most people want to stay the same. They want to take the same them, take that same them into the market to produce better results. And so they're looking in the wrong direction. This starts with you changing who you are, becoming a better you, becoming more disciplined, taking that better disciplined, better trained, better educated you into the market to produce different results. And you can't cheat the system. You can't skip that work on yourself and think that different results from the markets are going to come. And so many people skip from mentor to mentor, book to book, course to course, all right, staying the same. But wherever you go, there you are again, unless you stop one day and start changing who you are first. That's when your results come. And those are the 4 reasons people lose in this game.
Very well said, Oliver. Excellent points. All right, so this leads us to our final question of today's interview, a question I think a lot of the audience will be perceptive on as well, and that is Bitcoin. And the question is, Bitcoin has been at the center of most news stories as of late due to meteoric rise over the last few months, and we know you too are a Bitcoin fan. And our question is, after such a huge run up, what would you tell someone thinking about investing in Bitcoin right now?
Well, I would say that, well, first of all, I'm a late adopter to Bitcoin. I became adopted to it in late 2019 and made my first foray as an investor in Bitcoin in March of 2020. And so I I say that to temper anyone's view. I am by far not anywhere near a Bitcoin expert, but let me just say what I see. I have been very good at picking long-term trends, and I will tell you that we are in what I would call the era of digitization. We are moving everything in the world from analog to digital, and Bitcoin has emerged as the digital version of gold. Now, think about this. As the digital version, I believe that everything that was once focused on the analog version should be moved to the digital version. If we think about this in other areas, we would see The analog version of sending mail. We remember when we used to write letters and lick the envelopes. We'd lick the envelope and write the name of the person and walk to the mailbox or go to the post office and mail it with the stamps on the mail. And then maybe if I was mailing someone in a different country, they'd get it 2.5 weeks later and then have to respond to me, and I would get it maybe 3 weeks later. That was the analog version of mail. What's the digital version of mail today? It's email. So is the digital version of mail smaller than the analog version, or is it bigger? No, it's bigger by by many, many magnitudes. If we were to look at the digitization of movies. I don't know if many people in America remember Blockbuster, but I remember rushing home from work on a Friday, wanting to get to a Blockbuster to get my video in hand before the 25 videos disappeared or what have you. And I'd pick up some Twizzlers or whatever, and I'd take the physical video and put it into my VCR on the weekend, and I have to bring it back, before I got fines or whatever. That was the analog version of movies. And today the digital version is Netflix. So Blockbuster is worth zero today. Netflix is worth billions of dollars today. The digitization of our photos. Do you remember when we used to have to go buy? I know I'm dating myself. Some of you don't remember this. Some of you are too young for this, but there was a time where you had to go buy film, and you had to buy different types of film for different exposures, and you put them into a camera and you took pictures, and then you went into a dark room and you developed the pictures in the dark with certain types of light and underwater, and you'd come up with the picture and have to hang them so that the pictures dry. The digital version of photos now are on your iPhone. Do you remember the old phones that used to have the cord that you have to dial the phone? You dial 9, and you waited for the 9 to finish, and then 7, and the cord would sometimes get wrapped around your arm, and you'd have to undo the cord. That was the analog phone. You can buy an analog phone today off Amazon for $37. The digital version of the phone today is the iPhone or a Samsung phone, which will cost you $1,200, $1,500 for the top model, $37, $1,500. So my point is that in no case has the digital version of something remained smaller or the same as the analog version of what it replaced. It's always exponentially bigger. Netflix is exponentially bigger than Blockbuster. Email is exponentially bigger than sending out a letter. Do you understand? Everything digital is exponentially bigger. The iPhone is exponentially more expensive and more valuable than an analog phone with a cord that you have to dial. And digital gold will be exponentially bigger than the analog version of gold. Gold today has an overall valuation of $10 trillion. Bitcoin is the digital version of that 5,000-year technology. And make no mistake about it, money is a technology as well. But money, as it is related to gold, is a 5,000-year analog version. And it is high time that get disrupted by its digital version. Bitcoin is the digital version of gold. It will not only match the current valuation of the analog gold today, which is 10 trillion. Now, Bitcoin is 1 trillion. Gold, its analog version, is 10 trillion. So if the digital version rises to match the analog version, that means that Bitcoin is a 10x from here, from 1 trillion to 10 trillion. But remember, digital versions just don't match. Netflix didn't match Blockbuster. Email didn't match sending a mail. iPhone didn't match an analog phone. It exponentially surpassed. So if Bitcoin is not just going to match its analog version, 10 trillion, which is a 10x from here, if it's going to exponentially surpass the value, then we're going way beyond a $10 trillion asset. What's my advice for you? To start a dollar cost averaging plan to make Bitcoin a part of your life, to gradually move savings, to use it as a savings account. It is the analog future of money, and you need to be there. That's my advice, Jordan.
Excellent. Well, Oliver, that wraps up our interview today. I want to thank you again for spending some time with us and trying something a little bit different for our audience, which I know they really appreciated. There was a lot of questions that came through throughout this 30 minutes. And, I encourage everyone to stick around, not just throughout the virtual event, but to check back in for Wednesday, tomorrow, where Oliver will be coming back at 4:50 to 5:20, and he'll be speaking on how to accumulate stocks like a pro. So reach out to his team, check out their virtual booth. There's a lot of great offers and different products in there that can help you guys with your coaching and trading. And Oliver, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Jordan. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for having me once again. And thank you all for joining me. I'll be with you over the next 2 days. Okay. Ciao for now. Peace.
Goodbye.